On today's show, Citi is going to be showering us with transfer bonuses, and we'll talk about incredible uses of Japan Airlines miles.
Frequent Miler on the Air starts now. Today's main event, Sweet Spot Awards, courtesy of Japan Airlines. So for a little while now, Bilt Rewards has offered one-to-one transfers to Japan Airlines, but now Capital One is making transfers available to Japan Airlines as well. Not quite one-to-one, but still. That makes it an exciting new world to go into and to investigate. And Nick has been diving into their award charts and discovering some really awesome things about what you could do with Japan Airlines miles. That'll be the topic of today's main event.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun diving into it a little bit. I had long heard about the positives with Japan Airlines Mileage Bank, and for years there was just no easy way to get the miles. But I knew that some people still did transfer Marriott points to Japan Airlines Mileage Bank because the values were so good. And I've long known that, but I hadn't really dug into it much until Capital One added them as a transfer partner, and I'm really pleasantly surprised by what I've seen. We'll get more into that further into today's show, but for now, don't forget that if you want to jump ahead to that or you want to come back to something later on, you can always find the timestamps in the show notes. So just expand the show description to find that. That's also where you'll find links to more information about all the various things that we're talking about today. Wherever you're watching or listening, don't forget to like this, give it a thumbs up, leave us some stars for a review, leave us a comment. We always appreciate hearing from you. Now let's drag out this week's giant mailbag.
Today's giant mail comes from Zach. Zach writes, I'm a huge fan of y'all. I'm an Army Navy Guard member that puts in just enough active duty time to get SCRA benefits, which is Servicemembers Civil Relief Act. And he gets from that waived annual fees. So some credit card companies, including American Express, will waive the annual fees if you're in active duty military. So he goes on to say, so I have so many luxury cards, I get far more value from the cards than I do from my Guard paycheck. Y'all have been a key factor in deciding to stay in the National Guard, so thank you for your service.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, thank you, first of all. Thank you for the true service, but I'm glad we're helpful. I'm glad that we're helping you play the game and win. And how smart. I mean, how smart is that if you're certainly, if you're an active duty military person, take advantage of the chance to get all these things. I mean, you look at all the coupons that just got added on the Amex Platinum card. And if you're able to get all of those coupons every year without paying the annual fee, I mean, My goodness, I can see where you're going with that, Zach.
Yeah. Okay, and Zach goes on to say, also, funny story. My kids have been so used to business class flights that when we were flying out to Hawaii with my extended family in economy, got everybody's tickets on points, I had this exchange with my 8-year-old son. Son, are we flying in the front of the plane? Me, no, we're flying in the back in the regular seats. Son, sniffle, sniffle. Am I being punished? Me, comforts him. We're flying regular so we can sit next to your cousins. Son, I'm fine sitting by myself in the front.
Oh, that's terrific. That's I could totally picture my older son saying that. So I totally pictured my son as I was hearing that whole thing there. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun being able to live that kind of lifestyle. Huh? I mean, pretty wild what you get to do with miles and points, but good to every now and then travel like a normal person, right? I mean, I think that's a lot of fun too. And so good. I'm glad your son's having a good time. Glad your son's enjoying the fruits of your labor. And so thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. That was a fun email.
Yeah. All right. Now it's time for our 100K Vacay Frequent Miler Challenge update. Things are heating up. I don't know if you've been watching on Instagram, but if you haven't yet been, you should be, because as this podcast releases, Greg, you're somewhere, right?
I am somewhere. So, we're recording this before my trips began. My trip began tomorrow as I'm recording this, but yesterday, as you're listening, if you listen to the show right away, I left on Thursday, September 25th, and I flew eastward.
Greg's being cagey because he doesn't want me to know yet.
I am
because
not going to divulge on the show where I ended up. So you're going to have to check on Instagram. Actually, on the blog, I'll be doing daily updates. So I should have done at least one update by the time this is released, if not two, and you'll see where I am. As a reminder, I'm doing kind of the benchmark trip. So I have 100,000 Chase points and $1,000 to build a vacation. And so I've just started off that vacation. And the idea is when I'm back, the three competitors for 100K Vacay are going to take off on their trips. And the judges, me and Kiri, are going to evaluate each component of each person's trip compared to components of my trip, compared to the benchmark trip. And so each of them is going to be trying to prove that they can do more with their individual points, either Amex membership rewards, Capital One miles, or Citi thank you points. They each have 100. Each one has a different one of those, and 100,000 of them to use for their vacations. And they're going to be trying to prove that they can do more than I could do with my Chase points. But hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, I've checked in to my first hotel, and hopefully, I'm enjoying a really great vacation in a place that Nick has been known to say it surprised him how great of a destination it was. So
Ooh.
I'll leave Nick with that, wondering.
Oh, I have a good guess, but I'm going to keep it quiet. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm excited. So again, if you're not following on Instagram, you should be, because it's fun to watch the stories. So if you're not an Instagram user, if you get on Instagram and you follow Frequent Miler on Instagram, and then you click on the profile picture essentially for Frequent Miler, that's where you can follow along with the individual stories. And of course, there will also be reels there. Like Greg said, we're going to have daily updates, and there's a few things you should keep in mind date wise. So Greg's trip is kicking off this Thursday, September 25th, and then he'll be coming back, I think, on Tuesday,
Right.
September 30th, right? And then on Wednesday, October 1st, there's going to be a live check-in, a live kickoff event at 9 p.m. on YouTube. There'll be a link right on the homepage of the blog, frequentmiler.com, for you to join us on YouTube on October 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be kind of our kickoff event where we're going to discuss Greg's trip, and then Stephen and Tim and I will, of course, be either already traveling or getting ready to travel. That kicks off the travel window for us, and we've got through the following Wednesday when we have our final check-in to run our vacation. We're going to have another live YouTube event on Saturday, October 4th. So you'll want to tune into that as well so that you can find out where we are and what we're doing on our 100K Vacay vacations. Again, each of us get 100,000 transferable points and $1,000 to put together the most incredible vacation that we possibly can. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, follow us on Instagram, but like Greg said, also, we're going to have daily journal updates on the blog. So as Greg travels, you can follow each day on the blog with where he is and what he's doing and how his vacation is going. And then, of course, starting October 1st or 2nd, when the rest of us kick off, you're going to follow those journal updates from Stephen and Tim and I as well. So there's going to be a lot of content coming out, and hopefully we're going to be showing off some cool sweet spots with various transferable currencies. So whether you've got Capital One miles or Amex membership rewards points or Chase points, whatever it is you have, if you're tuning in and paying attention, hopefully you're going to find some sweet spots that you say, oh, wow, I could do that too. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Are you excited, Greg?
I am
Or are you
very
nervous?
excited, but I want to hear your guess. There's no reason for you to keep your guess private.
I think there's a Hyatt Regency in Kotor, Montenegro. That's going to be my guess. You go to the Hyatt Regency in Kotor, Montenegro, and you check out. It's a beautiful coastline, amazing spot there. So that's my guess, but I don't know, because there's another one in mind too that, although I don't know the Chase out, that's one that pops into my mind because I know that there's a nice looking Hyatt Regency there. But we're going to see.
Gotcha.
You're going to have to tune in and find out. Am I right? Am I wrong? Did he go somewhere else? Because there are quite a few places that I have found surprising. So it's kind of tough to narrow it down. So
There
we'll
you go.
see. We'll see. But you'll see too if you get online now and check out frequentmiler.com and check us out on Instagram. All right, card news. Let's talk about this week's card news. Spirit Travel More credit card holders now get 2 free checked bags. So that's pretty surprising given the fact that Spirit is obviously a lower cost carrier, and so there haven't been many benefits like that. They make a lot of money on selling all of those various ancillary stuff, so things. But you need to know that that benefit only applies to the primary card holder. So it's not like some airlines where you get a check bag for you and six or seven companions. It's only the two free check bags for the primary card holder, but still, that's a pretty good benefit, right?
Yeah, it's a good benefit. So if, Spirit stays in business long enough for you to take advantage of your two free check bags, that will be a great cardholder benefit. So good on them.
Truly, it
Okay.
is though, because I mean, the cost to check bags is oftentimes as much or more than the cost
Yeah.
of the ticket. So I mean,
Yeah, true.
that's a pretty good deal. And who needs status with Spirit when you get the two free check bags, which is perhaps the questionable part of that decision on their part, I guess, because part of the advantage of having the card is being able to spend towards status, so you can get some of that stuff for free. But who needs that when you get two bags for free? Anyway,
Right.
that's a side thing anyway. So I think it's pretty cool. Also, keep in mind that primary card holders have the ability to pool points to create a points pool. And so you could pool points with the rest of your family if you've got the card. So the card has a couple of good benefits. So if Spirit does stay in business and
Mhm.
they meet your needs, I think there's a pretty good money saver to be had there. That's not our only card news this week, though. We also have Amex out with some bad news that I don't know. I expected for a long time, so I can't get too upset about it. Amex has now said that they will exclude gift cards from the Hilton credits starting in 2026. And effectively, this has already been around for almost a year. When Amex initially launched some quarterly credits on the Amex Business Platinum cards and the Hilton business card, they had these quarterly credits, and it was possible to go to like buyhiltongifts.com or something like that. Don't quote me on the exact URL, and buy gift cards each quarter and then kind of stack up your credits. But they ran out of plastic, I think last December, and keep saying that, oh, gift cards are going to come back soon. Gift cards are going to come back soon. And I think anybody who's reasonable is probably expected that if and when they ever came back, it was going to somehow be excluded.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a surprise at all. So I think this is just paving the way for them to be able to bring back those gift cards
Right.
without, giving free Hilton stays basically or Hilton credit to card holders. I added one more bit of card news that I forgot to put in the outline before, which is that there's information now out about Southwest is going to be introducing a debit card. And I'm not, I didn't add it because I find that debit card particularly interesting, but I thought it was super cool. Our own Stephen Pepper, managed to find a kind of hidden landing page for this card in order to dig up all the information about it before it was ready to be actually launched. So check out his post if you're interested. But it sounds like a kind of okay. I mean, I don't know. It is a rewards debit card, which is unusual these days. So that's something to look at.
Well, yeah, it's unusual these days, but starting to expand. Remember that
Mhm.
Wyndham launched a debit card at some point over the last year, I think, and Spirit announced that this fall they're going to be launching a debit card, and I think it's issued by the same folks as the who's going to be issuing the Southwest debit card. So we're seeing some more of that. I think they're just trying to capture another segment of the
Yeah.
market. It's going to be mostly irrelevant for listeners of this show because you'll do better with other rewards credit cards. But there are some things that perhaps you can only pay with a debit card, or maybe some ways to play that and turn it into some additional rewards. So,
Yeah,
so
I'm going to mention that View from the Wing had a very interesting article about this debit card coming out. Not so much about the debit card that I found interesting, but about how some banks can earn money from debit cards, whereas others can't. So it has to do with the size of the bank and some other factors as to whether you as the bank can earn interchange fees when people make debit payments. And so Southwest found a bank that could do that, and that's why they're able to offer rewards on these purchases. So that's very interesting. We'll add that a link to that View from the Wing article in here if we can find it.
and it could certainly be useful for something like tax payments if you don't want to have to pay the fee to pay by credit card. Perhaps you could. Perhaps the math would work out. I didn't
Yeah.
even do the math to see, but it might.
Yep. Yep.
All right, let's talk about awards points and more. We got a few pieces of awards points and more out. Air France KLM is out with a promotion to earn 10,000 bonus flying Blue Miles when you fly from the US to any destination served by Air France or KLM. You just have to book an economy class ticket on Air France or KLM by October 7th for travel between now and March 31st of 2026. I think it's just cash like revenue fares. That was my read of the promotion as well. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. And at least one segment has to be from the US to either Paris or Amsterdam, which if you're booking a flight from the United States on one of those airlines, probably you're going in because maybe there's a couple of options in the Caribbean, maybe that you could do. I think Miami to Guadeloupe is a route that Air France serves that wouldn't touch Paris.
Isn't
So
there
I
isn't
guess,
there that isn't there that Fifth Freedom Air France flight to across the Pacific to
oh, right, to Tahiti.
so
Also that. Yeah,
yeah,
there
so
is. You're right.
right. So I actually think that their headline of this offer is incorrect when it says when flying from the US to any destination served by Air France or KLM.
It's
That
true.
is not a correct description of this. It's
That's
like
true. That's
almost
true.
any,
Almost
but
any. There are a couple because yeah, there's the flight from Miami to Guadeloupe, and there's the flight from Los Angeles to Papaya to Tahiti.
oh,
Yeah,
there you
so
go.
you're
Yeah.
right. There are a couple. So there you go. There you have it. And actually, there are some other Fifth Freedom flights too. Last I knew, I think KLM still has Santiago to Buenos Aires. I mean, I think there's a few different Fifth Freedom routes that so it isn't true. You're right. The
Yeah.
headline is
Yeah.
kind of misleading. But anyway, 10,000 bonus miles certainly is a nice return, particularly if you find an inexpensive fare. I didn't see anything that was excluding basic economy fares if they have those. So I know you found a pretty good fare on one of the routes, right?
Yeah, I poked around on Google Flights to see what was the cheapest qualifying fare I could find. And ironically, most of the cheapest, I was looking at round trip because assuming I was kind of looking at like, would you want to build a little vacation in Europe around this? And I found some cheaper ones, but even though I had restricted Google Flights to Air France and KLM, it was showing Delta flights, which were sometimes cheaper than the Air France and KLM flights, like to Dublin, for example. But what I found, just one example, is JFK to Rome round trip for $440, where the outbound is on Air France, the return is on Delta, and as long as that would qualify because you have that one segment from the U.S. to Paris.
Oh, because the outbound was on Air
Outbound was Air
France.
France.
Air
Yep.
France, yeah, yeah. So that's interesting because I didn't even pay attention to that initially, but it does say I think that at least one segment has to be from the U.S. to Paris or Amsterdam. So if it
Right.
was Dublin or if it was Delta on the outbound, that would be a problem. Yeah, this is
Right.
the point you were making with the Dublin flight. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, well, so 440. I mean, is that mileage run worthy? Would you pay $440 to earn 10,000 flying blue miles?
Not even close. No.
No, so but if you want to go to Europe anyway, it's a nice return. I mean, 10,000 miles at a value of 1.3 cents per mile would be like what $130 worth of miles, and you might value the miles more or less than that, but it's a nice return, just not worth a mileage run.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Avianca LifeMiles has an award sale on its own flights for travel from now through December 15th, 2025, but you got to book by September 29th. So there's not a lot of time after the show publishes to be able to book this, but it is valid for both economy and business class and valid for LifeMiles members with an address in the United States, which by the way, the Air France KLM Flying Blue promotion also required having your registered address in the United States. It was something that was open to US members. So same thing here with LifeMiles. And so you can get some decently good deals here too, right?
Yeah, so I just looked at one particular one from DC to Santiago, Chile, which is a long flight. You get that in business class for 46,200 life miles. I think that's a good deal. I don't know what their normal price is for that, so I don't.
60, I think. I'm pretty sure 60 if
Oh,
I
well,
remember correctly.
that's a
So
pretty good discount then if that's the case. And then you'd get a further discount if you have Life Miles Plus, where you get that additional, what is it, 10% off?
That's right. You get 10% off. And then also beyond that, don't forget that there is currently a transfer bonus from Citi Thank You Rewards to Avianca Life Miles, a 25% transfer bonus. So it would cost you even fewer points from Citi. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good deals to be had there. And don't sleep on economy. I don't know if this one is valid for economy or not. I didn't actually
Yeah.
look into this one very much, but just recently I had reported on economy class JFK to Santiago, something like 12,000 Avianca Life Miles. And that's before the 10% discount with a Life Miles Plus membership. I don't know if that particular route is on sale here or not, but if it is,
Probably.
potentially,
Yeah.
yeah,
You'd
I would
probably get it
assume.
for less than free. They probably pay you life miles to fly it during the sale.
So would that be mileage run worthy, Greg? If they were paying you in Life Miles, would you take the trip?
Sure.
Okay, good. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So that's our Life Miles sale. Let's see. Anything else in award news here? What else do we have? We've got some new transfer bonuses out this week. Citi is slamming it on the transfer bonuses lately, right? It's just one after another. They
They
are
really
knocking
are.
it out of the
You know,
park.
we did that show where we talked about how yeah, we were all affected with the latest team challenge, 100K vacay, with what transfer bonuses had come out, and we remarked on that show that city transfer bonuses were much stronger than we predicted when we launched the challenge. Well, Citi has not slowed down at all, and in fact has maybe sped up since we
Right.
recorded that show. This is
Right.
insane. We have four, as we're recording this, four active transfer bonuses from Citi to discuss. And who knows? Maybe by the time the show publishes, there'll be more. But
Nice.
right now, you could get a 40% transfer bonus. Through October 15th, transferring to Qatar Avios. Now that's on the Qatar side, so you won't see the transfer bonus right away. That takes a bit before the 40% is added. Citi now has a 50% transfer bonus to Turkish Airlines through October 18th. 50%. That's astounding.
It is, but I think Greg probably saw my hands up to be like, caution, caution, danger, Will Robinson, or whatever that was. I never saw that thing. But anyway, so yes, it could be a great deal. And in the post, I wrote some situations where it could be. And in the post, I mentioned that Turkish can be notoriously difficult to deal with, and that for a long time there wasn't a button to submit payment on the checkout page, and they fixed that. Well, guess what? They've unfixed that.
That's
So
for, but to be clear, that's for partner awards, right?
yeah, well, I don't know for
Yeah.
sure if it's only partner awards. I didn't look at Turkish awards, but I did hear from several readers who said that they just can't check out online for Turkish partner awards. The Pay Now button is gone. Now I did hear from one reader who said that they were able to use PayPal and the page errored out, but they still received the ticket. But then, of course, I heard from another reader who hadn't been able to submit payment and called, and of course the phone agent said, you can't book United flights with Turkish miles, and so it's a difficult program to work with. So you need to know the limitations with Turkish. If you understand the program and you understand the difficulties and you're willing to kind of, have some adventure in your life, then there's some great deals to be had. There's no doubt. But if this is like your first time ever using Turkish, I just caution you that you should probably read up a little bit on the program before you dive in.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I look at it personally as like, well, maybe if I have opportunity to book the Detroit to Istanbul Turkish Airlines flight in business class, it might be that might be a good way to get the Turkish miles needed for that because I think they open up a lot more space to their own members than they do for partner award bookings.
Yeah, and one reader that I heard from that used PayPal, they booked a flight to Hawaii. So, you're talking what 7,000, less than 7,000 points each way to and from Hawaii. If you can find it and you can actually get it to book, that's a phenomenal deal too, but it's not
But
as
that's a
easy as
partner
that
award. Yeah.
sounds. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All
All
right.
right,
What
moving on.
else?
Citi also has a 30% transfer bonus to Virgin Atlantic through October 18th and a 25% transfer bonus to Avianca Life Miles also through October 18th. So, man, Citi's just killing it.
They really are. They really are. Well done to them. And where are you, Amex? I mean, my goodness, like Amex has given up the crown on transfer bonuses, and I don't know why. Now, one thing that I've noticed lately, by the way, about the Citi transfer bonuses, Greg said, well, who knows? Maybe they'll launch another one by the time this releases, and I don't know. Maybe they will. But one thing I've noticed lately is they seem to release these transfer bonuses on Sundays, which is really interesting because Sunday's not a day, obviously, when people are going to cover it. I don't know why they're doing it that way, but the last several transfer bonuses I've specifically noticed have been on Sundays. So that's, take that for what it's worth.
Mhm.
All right. Rove Miles also is out with a transfer bonus. So Rove Miles, you may remember, is a platform for booking hotel stays and booking flights and then earning transferable miles on them. And so Rove Miles doesn't have a credit card. It's just like a shopping portal, travel portal, booking type of an engine that allows you to earn miles, and sometimes quite a few. I mean, we talked about it, I think, on the show. Sometimes you can earn 10, 20, even 30 transferable miles per dollar or more in some situations for booking hotels, and not quite as much for booking flights, but still you can earn a return on booking flights as well. And then you can theoretically also search for opportunities to transfer your miles through the Rove Miles platform. I haven't found that as useful as the earning of miles. And they have a shopping portal as well. You can click through and earn miles when you're buying stuff. So they have a pretty interesting set of transfer partners. Some of them are partners that you know and love from lots of other programs, and a few are ones that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily have access to. So it's kind of an interesting program. And more interesting now is that they have a 20% transfer bonus going to Air France KLM Flying Blue through October 22nd, and also a 20% transfer bonus going to Finnair Plus through December 31st of 2025. So those are two sweet spots that are looking a little bit better yet right now with the 20% transfer bonus.
Yeah.
Obviously, Air France KLM Flying Blue can be useful, and Finnair is an entry point to Avios.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to add, that even if you don't want Finnair Avios, if you move them to Finnair, you could then move them from Finnair to British Airways or one of the other Avios program to where you do want them.
Although
Um,
I will remind you that Finnair Avios has some interesting hotel partnerships that are worth a look. If you haven't ever read my post about booking Scandinavian hotels with Finnair Avios, there are some opportunities to get fantastic deals for very few Avios. Now, you do have to pay. You'll need to come out of pocket some, but you could use very few Avios and get a really good discount on hotels in Scandinavia. So that's worth a look if you're planning a trip to Scandinavia. Finnair has that kind of unique thing there where you can get great value for your Avios when you're booking hotels.
Yeah, that's a really cool find. And also, I should note that if you sign up for Rove Miles, which is free, with our referral link, you'll get 1,000 Rove Miles just for signing up. So might as well. It's at frequentmiler.com/go/Rove Miles, all one word.
Very good. And then last but not least, Capital One is out with a transfer bonus. I mean, we should probably mention Capital One has added a couple of transfer partners as well here, because they added this week 1 to 2 transfers to I Prefer, the hotel program. That's not a transfer bonus. That's just the normal ratio. Now, keep in mind, of course, Citi transfers 1 to 4 to I Prefer, which is the loyalty program of preferred hotels. So Capital One is only 1 to 2, but then on the flip side, their base earning rate is 2x everywhere. So, it depends on how you earn most of your miles and points, and what kind of spend you're putting on the card as to whether that'll be appealing to you or not. But that's a cool add anyway. They also added Qatar Airways Avios, which is not particularly exciting since they already had access to Avios with other programs. Although, as we just heard, Citi is offering a transfer bonus to Qatar that actually it's not really Citi offering, it's Qatar offering it for select partners. So we can hope that maybe Capital One will make it into that sometime in the future. But for now, Capital One has also added Japan Airlines as a transfer partner, and there is a 30% transfer bonus from Capital One Miles to Japan Airlines Mileage Bank going from September 23rd through October 22nd. So this is another one that ends October 22nd. Seems to be a magic date for some of these end dates on transfer bonuses, it seems. But anyway, so that's a pretty good deal. With that bonus, you're getting, is it exactly 1 to 1 or about 1 to 1?
It's not.
It's
So the
not quite right.
normal transfer is going to be 1,000 Capital One miles become 750 Japan Airlines miles, and with that 30% transfer bonus, you get just shy of 1,000 Japan Airlines miles from each thousand Capital One miles, which is really annoying because
Yeah.
if you want to book an award that's an even number of thousand miles and you're getting them all from Capital One, you're going to have to kick in an
Mm,
extra thousand, right? Or
No, I don't.
oh
I
no,
don't.
because
I don't think so. Capital One allows transfers in much smaller increments. I was just
oh,
going to
that's
check
right,
because a
that's
lot
right.
of
I forgot about
programs you
that.
could do in increments of 100 miles. I don't know for sure whether that's true with Japan Airlines Mileage Bank or not, but you may be able to kind of thread the
Right,
needle. It is annoying.
right.
It's annoying because you have to do more math. It
Right,
really is.
right. So, if I don't understand if they had made it a 33.333% transfer bonus, then it would be an even 1-to-1 and it would have been less irksome. But there you go. That's what they did. So, whatever.
Very good. And so, of course, we're talking about them offering this transfer bonus. Now, during ordinary times, again, the transfer ratio is not 1-to-1. It's going to be almost 1-to-1 until October 22nd, though. And that's interesting because Japan Airlines has some pretty cool sweet spots, right?
They do. Let's get into today's main event. Today's main event, Sweet Spot Awards, courtesy of Japan Airlines. So, as we just said, Capital One has added Japan Airlines as a transfer partner. So, you can transfer your Capital One miles, normally 1,000 Capital One miles to become 750 Japan Airlines miles. Bilt already had 1-to-1 transfers from Bilt Rewards to Japan Airlines. Marriott has 3-to-1 transfers, or if you transfer in blocks of 60,000 Marriott points, you end up with 25,000 Japan Airlines miles for each 60,000 Marriott points. So that's a little bit better than 3-to-1. And another way to potentially get miles is Japan Airlines has had US based credit cards on and off. So when there is one available to sign up for, you might be able to earn your Japan Airline miles that way as well. So those are ways you could get your miles. But until recently, those of us on the frequent miler team haven't really known much about what you can do with those miles. And I was vaguely aware that there was a devaluation not that long ago of Japan Airlines. So I didn't know, would there be any sweet spots left after that devaluation? And so Nick dug in, spent like all day yesterday diving into the program and found a lot of good stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but why don't you start with the bad stuff so we get that out of the way first?
I will start with the bad stuff. It just occurred to me, though, actually, before I hit the bad stuff, that I think there's one other way potentially that you might, if you're listening out there, maybe you've got access to this still. If you had the old Japan Airline, or not Japan, if you had the old Barclays Arrival Premier card, I know that transferred also to Japan Airlines, and I think that card still exists. So I don't know if anybody out there still has it, but
There
if
you
you
go.
do, that's another way to get Japan Airlines miles. Anyway, but you're right. We got to start with the bad news, and then we'll get into the stuff that we're excited about. So the bad news, the downsides of Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. First of all, they have a hard expiration policy of 36 months. This is one of our least favorite things that an award program can do. And unfortunately, a lot of the ones based in Asia, especially, have these hard expiration policies. It must just be a thing in the market there that it has been established for a long time, because you see the same thing with Singapore Airlines and ANA, and Asia Miles used to have the same policy. So Japan Airlines has a 36-month hard expiration policy. It's a little funny. Your miles will expire at the end of the month, 36 months from the day they were earned. So if you transferred miles to Japan Airlines Mileage Bank on, say, October 2nd of 2025, they would expire on October 31st of 2026, the end of that month. I'm sorry, not 2026, 3 years after that, 2028. So the end of the month in which you transferred 3 years later. So that stinks because it's a use them or lose them. We don't like that in general with any of these various programs. And I especially don't like it in a program where one of the strengths of Japan Airlines Mileage Bank is being able to book awards really far in advance, farther than most programs will have access to them. So you might transfer miles today to book a flight for like a year from now, and then things change close to that time, and now you're on the clock. You get 2 more years to use those miles before they expire. There's no
Yeah,
way to extend them. There's no way to bring them back to life after they've expired. So that stinks.
it really does. So would you recommend only transferring on morning of the first day of a month that has 31 days.
Yes, as long as that first day of the month with 31 days is also the day when you've found availability for the flight that you want to book.
Right, right.
So that's the only day of the month you should be looking. No, it's definitely a bummer from the program. Additionally, another restrictive part of the program is that you can only book awards for family members, and they're very specific about which family members qualify. Now, it's a little bit better than some programs that have family restrictions, but not very. So you could book for your siblings, your parents, your children, your grandchildren. You can also book for your in-laws and for your like your brother, sister-in-law, and their spouse, and obviously, of course, your spouse. So you've got a number of family members you can cover. But for instance, a niece or a nephew or a cousin or a friend, you're not allowed to book awards for people that fit those descriptions. And it's unclear to me how they verify that or when they verify that. It says that if they don't have a matching last name, that they may ask you for verification of the family relationship. And I don't know if they're going to do that right away when you book, or they're going to do that at the check-in counter. And I don't know
Or if
how
they
you're
do
going
it
to
at
prove
all.
it. If they do it at all, exactly. Yeah, they may not at all. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but know that
Yeah.
that's one of the rules.
I mean, one thing I know, like ANA has virtually the same rules. I've traveled with someone who was
Your brother-in-law or
my
sister-in-law.
something-in-law.
Right, right.
A
Couple of times before.
and they never checked. But I can't promise that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, so it's worth knowing that anyway. They also pass on carrier imposed surcharges, although that's not necessarily as bad as it sounds, but they do have their own surcharges, which are fixed. They're defined amounts that they add. I think international awards, they add 21,000 Japanese yen to those in surcharges, which is not horrible, but it's still not nothing. So that's a factor to be aware of. And then finally, Japan Airlines Mileage Bank awards can't be changed. They can be canceled, but you can't change like the date or the routing or even the class of service. If you see first class opens up and you want to upgrade, you can't do that. You have to cancel and then rebook. But the good news is the cancellation fee is pretty cheap. It's 3,100 yen, which at the time we're recording this is only about 21 bucks, I think. So it's pretty cheap to cancel an award. It's not free though, so it's not quite as good as some other programs in that regard, but better than most programs outside of the United States in terms of the cancellation penalty.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay. All right, let's now dig in. So this is your show, Nick. You spent all day digging in and finding all these things. So as a reward, you get to take over the rest of the show.
Well, all day and much of the night, let me tell you, because one of the other downsides that I guess I didn't mention in the post, or we didn't mention yet, is that the site doesn't have very easy to use calendar functionality, particularly when you're searching for partner awards. It's a day by day, hunt and pack. And so you can kind of use an award search tool to get an idea of flights that you think should be available, perhaps, but it's kind of a slow process looking for awards. And then particularly when we get to piecing together the multi-partner, multi-stop awards, it's a slow slog figuring that out. So it took a lot of time hunting through and looking at various data points, but there's a lot of good stuff. So first of all, first sweet spot, best use thing to keep in mind is that you can book awards really far in advance. Japan Airlines Mileage Bank allows booking 360 days in advance. Most airline programs offer booking 330 days in advance. So this gives you an extra month over most programs, which is good because it means you're going to get first dibs on much of that Japan Airlines award space. And so that makes a difference, believe it or not, in finding award space before it becomes available to other partners. So that's nice. Also just good for planners, folks who want to be able to plan far in advance. And the thing that goes along with that is that you can access expanded Japan Airlines award space for Mileage Bank members. They have pretty good award space for their own members. In fact, when I looked at September of next year, about a year out from when I wrote the post, I found almost daily award availability for 4 passengers in business class to most American cities for 80,000 miles a passenger. Now, that's not the best deal that they offer.
Is this from Tokyo or where?
Yeah, from Tokyo, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think actually when you were connecting, the pricing came up the same as well, if I remember correctly. And I looked at Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, Chicago, San Diego, Seattle. The only cities that were more were New York and Boston. So They serve a number of cities in the United States, and at 80,000 miles a person, that's a decent price for a business class award. Surcharges came to about $214 departing Tokyo. I should say taxes and surcharges came to about $214 departing Tokyo, so you'd pay less departing the United States since there'd be less in taxes. So that's a pretty good business class award price. It's not phenomenal at 80K, but the thing is, I was looking at almost daily availability for 4 passengers at that price.
Yeah.
And while there's other programs that offer slightly better pricing, it's hard to find 4 seats in business class to Asia. It was very surprisingly easy, I thought.
Right,
Through
right.
Japan Airlines.
Especially, flights across the Pacific have been notoriously difficult to find in business or first class for quite a while now. So that's a great find. Now, 80,000, that's not the cheapest possible price, right?
That's right. Yeah, the cheapest possible price is actually business class between Japan and the United States for just 55,000 miles and the same $214 in taxes and fees. And I did see some days with 55K pricing, even to New York. Now, New York, most of the time my searches, the dates I searched, most of the dates were 110,000 miles one way in business class from Tokyo to New York. But I found some days where it was 55,000 one way. So if you hunt that out, I mean, that's a phenomenal deal. 55K and 214 is really good for like a 12 or 13-hour business class flight.
Right, right. Well, even at that 110K, if you think about what you're getting for the, compared to what the cash price would be,
right?
Especially some of those flights might have been on their new jets, which the business class on that is supposedly phenomenal. I would love to fly that. So New York all the way to Japan, and in that product, 110,000 is not. It's a lot of points, but again, compared to the cash rate, that would still be a great value for your miles. Keep in mind if you're transferring from Capital One, it's not, except during the transfer bonus, it's not 1-to-1, so it'd be even more Capital One miles. But anyway, just talking about the value of Japan Airlines miles in particular, I don't think that's terrible.
No, I had the same thought because I was looking at trying to come up with the tail end of a trip where we're going to be in Asia for next year, about a year out. And I was looking at it and thinking, well, 110 and we fly nonstop to New York. And that's pretty convenient, So I had that same thought where I was like, it might be worth the convenience to pay a little bit more there. It's not a fantastic price, but it's, the availability is really the key. And if you're not New York based, 80K to the other cities, if you're going to be positioning home from there anyway, or you're based in one of the other cities, even better, I think. And then, if you find the 55K unicorn redemptions, if they fit your needs and your dates, great. And you're going to have, again, access to a better shot at that since you get access 360 days in advance through Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. So, I think that's pretty exciting. If you're an economy class traveler, though, 27K between the United States and Japan, that's also pretty good. So, as compared to cash prices to fly to Japan, 27K is not bad. You're still going to pay the same 214-ish in taxes and fees. So it's not, and that's again, departing Japan, departing the United States, it's going to be a little bit less. So the taxes and fees kind of a bummer, but at the same time, compared to cash rates to get to Japan, pretty good deal. Then we get into Japan Airlines Partner Awards. And this is pretty interesting because Japan Airlines has partners that I think maybe I was slightly aware of some of their partners, but I hadn't really paid attention to their partner awards at all. And if you've been on their website before, you probably wouldn't have expected that you could book their partner awards online because the website is very wonky. And I don't even know how I ended up with the same search tool, but different. I don't know how to even explain it. So the award search tool, several different times clicking from different places, I came into the same search tool, but it looked different. And sometimes it priced the taxes and fees in Japanese yen and sometimes in US dollars, depending on how so it's really wonky. So you probably wouldn't have thought you could even book partner awards online, but you can. so that's good news. Yeah, it is good news. It is good news. And they have some good rates. And so that's the even better news. So first of all, Emirates. You can book Emirates business class for both reasonable mileage rates, very reasonable mileage rates in quite a few cases, and reasonable surcharges in some cases, or at least reasonable-ish. It depends on the routing that you're looking at. So you may be aware that Emirates has really increased their taxes and fees on most of their awards. And so whether you're booking through Emirates or you're booking through their partners, for the most part, they have high surcharges. Air Canada Aeroplan has awards that don't feature those high surcharges, but they do feature really high mileage prices. So it's not particularly appealing to book those through Air Canada Aeroplan, in my opinion. Japan Airlines, though, still retains access to Emirates business class award space at good rates. And in some cases, like I said, great surcharge rates. For instance, Milan to New York was, I just almost said, yeah, 60,000 miles one way in business class. And the surcharges on that were like $158. And that's taxes and fees leaving Milan for New York. So
Hmm.
60K, that's way better. Emirates charges 87,000, I think at best, and a lot of taxes and fees on top. So
Yeah.
they've increased that. So hundreds of
Yeah, and
dollars.
and that changed fairly recently. So like
It did.
last in May, my wife and I flew used Emirates miles to fly business class Milan to JFK, and it was a very reasonable number of taxes. Like I feel like it was like $120 somewhere in that range, maybe if I'm remembering right. But soon after that, it they bumped it way up, and that's sad because I think if you want to upgrade to first class at the airport, like my wife and I did, I think you have to book with through Emirates from the get go, and then you wouldn't be able to take advantage of this. So do this if I'm right about that. Do this only if you're happy flying business class on Emirates.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, I found a fair amount of availability on the A380 where you may be happy flying business class on Emirates, but that's a really good point to keep in mind. Australia to Dubai is like $81 in taxes and fees and 80,000
Amazing.
miles, which is like
Hmm.
half of what Emirates charges on the same route
Yeah,
and like a
yeah,
tenth of what Emirates charges in taxes and fees. So
yeah.
that was a really good deal. There's other ones out there. Surcharges were a little higher in some cases. When I looked up several different airports in Asia to Dubai, like Bangkok and Singapore, the surcharges, the taxes and fees came to like 410, $450, something like that. But the mileage rates were really good. There was 42,000 miles one way. So you may not mind paying
Hmm.
$400 and change in taxes and fees if you're only paying 42,000 miles for the flight. So, moral of the story, there are some good opportunities with Emirates. If you want to fly Emirates business class, Japan Airlines is worth a look.
Cool.
Latam. We were all upset that Alaska Atmos Rewards is losing access to LATAM awards on October 1st, but Japan Airlines still has a partnership with LATAM. And so I looked up, for instance, New York and Miami to Santiago, Chile was 60,000 miles and just the $5.60 in taxes from the United States. So that's, I think, a little bit more than what Alaska charged. I think Alaska from Miami anyway was 50,000, although I think from New York it might have been as much, if not more. So 60K, that's a good deal for business class over a long haul like that. Of course, Greg mentioned earlier that there may be some even better deals through LifeMiles right now for booking on Avianca. But LATAM has a nice business class. We flew it on the party of five, and
Yeah.
we were all pretty happy with it, right?
Yeah, it was very nice, very comfortable, great service. Really enjoyed it. So Latam, partners with Delta now, right? So do you think Delta charges only 60,000 Sky Miles and 560?
Truthfully, I didn't look it up, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that probably they charge a few more miles for that.
Probably a few more.
So yeah, that's one to keep in mind anyway, that you would still have access to LATAM flights. Now, I did try to look up flights connecting onward to Easter Island, and I didn't find any availability. I spent a lot of time searching for awards, so at some point I had to just move on to the next
Sure.
thing. But that's something worth keeping in mind, that you may be able to book those flights to Easter Island, and of course, LATAM
Hmm.
flies down to the southern end of Chile. There's a lot of places you can go visit with LATAM that might be interesting. Next up, book Air France business class without surcharges. Now, you might be saying, wait a second, Japan Airlines is a one world airline and Air France is SkyTeam. And yeah, that's true. But I was very surprised to see that you can book Air France awards between the United States and Europe through Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. I had no idea. I think maybe I had some awareness that they had a partnership, but even if I had that awareness, I don't think I would have thought that you could have booked these flights, and certainly
Right.
not without surcharges. Because it doesn't matter who you book Air France KLM through. I thought you still were on the hook for their surcharges, but you're not. So I looked up, for instance, in the post, I had an example, Orlando to Paris for 60,000 miles and just the $5.60 that you pay departing the United States. I mean, wow, that was surprising.
That's a great find. That's really really interesting. It's such an oddball thing, and I think we often see situations where programs their best deals are for flights on partners that don't touch their home country, and this qualifies for that. But it even goes a step further. It's flights on a partner which is a very remote partner in that like they're not
Right.
part of the same alliance. They're in competing alliances, and so I think sort of the further away, both geographically and alliance wise you get, there's more opportunities for weird pricing to show up, and in this case, the weird pricing is around these lack of surcharges rather than the mileage costs.
Yeah, and I think that probably has something to do with the fact that, like, if an alliance partner is undercutting them significantly on award pricing, you would think that might, annoy them a little bit and cause some friction. Whereas if it's a partner that they don't really view as a competitor
Hmm.
necessarily, or it's like it's a competing alliance, but they're not
Yeah.
directly competing for the same customer base, you would think, right?
Right.
So
Right.
Air France doesn't probably worry that their core customers are looking at Japan Airlines, right? Because
Yeah.
they serve
Yeah.
different purposes. So
Well, here's an example of what you're saying. Like I heard, and I don't have, concrete evidence of this, but that Virgin Atlantic upped their surcharges on Delta awards when you use Virgin Atlantic miles to book Delta because Delta, someone at Delta gave them a call and said,
yeah,
"Hey, we own part of you.
right, right,
Stop that." Um,
right.
so, uh, so
Yeah, I
yeah, that
believe
just
that.
sort of supports your theory that like there's Air France and Japan Airlines are so far removed from each other. There's not going to be anyone calling the other and saying, "Hey, we have leverage over you." They have
Well,
nothing
yeah,
going on.
and you think that Air France is probably not very concerned that their members are also looking at Japan Airlines because it's not, not that people don't obviously fly more than one airline, but it's different when you've got passengers based in Paris that are traveling to the United States. I mean, yeah, they're going to look at Delta also and probably Virgin
Right?
Atlantic,
Yeah.
whereas,
Really good point.
Japan Airlines isn't on their radar at all
Yeah.
for that purpose. So yeah, I think that probably is part of it. But yeah, and now I should mention availability wasn't incredible in the searches that I did. Of course, I only had so much time to do so many searches. What I did was I went to seats.aero and I looked for business class awards that were available to Virgin Atlantic, and they weren't all available to Japan Airlines. I had to kind of hunt and pack until I found one that was
Hmm.
also available to Japan Airlines. So I don't know how easy it'll be to find these overall, but it's worth keeping in mind because it's something that I wouldn't have thought of. And I don't think any of the award search tools, at least as of right now, are showing any Japan Airlines
They're
awards at all.
They're
In
not.
terms,
That's
yeah.
that's correct. They are not. And one thing to watch out for is even if a award tool suddenly announces support for Japan Airlines, um, most likely that'll mean searching Japan Airlines for Japan Airlines own flights rather than for partner flights.
Hmm.
It's very rare for when programs have their award searches split up into different places for partners and for their own flights. You don't have award tools capable of doing both. Like Turkish as an example. The award tools that support Turkish only look at Turkish's own flights, not at how much it would cost to use Turkish miles to book United or something like that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that maybe I should have made in the downsides that it's a little complicated searching Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. So it's going to take you some time to figure out the ins and outs and sort of the quirks of searching. Because, for instance, they've
Mhm.
got three different. Well, first of all, they have a domestic search tool and an international search tool. And then once you pick international, they've got a search tool for searching Japan Airlines international flights, for searching partner international flights, which is a little confusing because I'll come back to that in a second. And then for searching one world flights, which is one world partners. And if you
Hmm.
use the one world tool and you look up a flight that's just operated by a single one world partner, it's not going to be bookable through that tool. You got to go through the partner tool if you're going to do
Hmm.
that. And then out of the
Yeah.
partner tool, you have to pick the partner that you want to fly on. So it's really
Wow.
kind of it's a challenging search experience. And so that's part of the reason it took me so long
Yeah.
to put all this together. So it does take a while to figure all that out. And it's worth mentioning also that when you find a flight in the search results, click all the way through to make sure that it's bookable. Because there were some that I saw, but then before I got to the final sort of checkout type of a page, it gave me an error saying that that flight wasn't bookable for one reason or another. So I don't know whether you could book those over the phone or not. I'm not exactly sure the deeper quirks there. So,
Yeah.
but I did
Yeah.
find plenty that I could get through to,
Right.
sort of where
And
you were checking.
also when searching Japan Airlines own flights, didn't you see there's somewhere it appears that flights are available, but it
Yeah,
actually says wait list only. So you have to kind of watch out for that as well. Because that
totally.
is not going to be bookable right at the moment. So this whole situation is like one in which it makes it more likely that some of these sweet spots we're talking about are going to stick around long term because it's going to be very hard for the masses to take advantage of them because it's so hard to find these awards. On the flip side, obviously, it's hard to find these awards. So whether
Take some
this is
effort.
useful to you or not is going to depend on how much you like digging into these things and are willing to hunt and peck different dates till you find the score and you find that sweet spot, maybe even one that Nick didn't find, and then you
Right.
can dance around the room and cheer once you've got that booked.
Right, and there are some that I didn't that I think should exist, but I couldn't find for the purposes of the post, and so I didn't include. A commenter noted that JetBlue flights should be bookable through Japan Airlines Mileage Bank, and they should, and for some good prices. I just couldn't find any of them available to be booked, so I didn't include
Hmm.
that yet. But I do intend to update the post and add even more over time. But it is kind of a long, slow slog that you need to be willing to jump into. Now, probably you, the listener, is not going to be looking for all of the sweet spots to put into a post. You're going to be looking for a specific one. And so it won't necessarily take you as much time as it kind of sounds like, when we're talking about it being difficult. It's kind of like riding a bike. You got to get the training wheels off, and it's going to just take a little bit of repetition to get to that point. And then once you do, it's going to seem relatively intuitive. But let's continue on with a couple other sweet spots here because there's a couple more I want to mention. British Airways. You can book British Airways with very reasonable surcharges through Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. Now that's also true through Cathay Pacific Asia Miles, but Japan Airlines Mileage Bank charges slightly fewer miles in some cases. For instance, I looked up New York to London, 42,000 miles one way in business class, and now I can't remember the exact total, a little over $200 in taxes and fees. So way
Hmm.
less than what you'd pay through most programs booking British Airways flights. 42K business class. That's a great price to London. And even if you
It's
continue
really
beyond that,
astounding.
it really, I mean, it is. It's terrific. And if you continue beyond London, it's still not bad. It was like 60K and I think $280 or so to continue on to Rome, for instance. And of course, since British Airways has high surcharges on their own flights, availability is often pretty easy on British Airways because it
Hmm.
discourages a lot of people from booking those British Airways flights. So I often find it's relatively easy to find British Airways business class award space. And so being able to find it with lower surcharges, if you search via Japan Airlines Mileage Bank, is, I think, a nice benefit.
Yeah, no, it totally is. British Airways gotten a little bit harder lately, I think, because they now reserve some of that award space for their own members,
Mhm.
and so those aren't bookable with partners. But still, I still think they have a pretty decent amount of award space, even for partner bookings.
Yeah, I mean, just as an example, the first couple of dates I tried searching with British Airways via Japan Airlines Mileage Bank had availability. I didn't
Hmm.
have to look hard at all for that. So now, like you said, may not be always the case. It may not be when you want to go. So I don't know. I don't even remember the dates I used for that off the top of my head. So maybe I picked a low season as it so happened. But anyway, that's one to keep in mind. Now, if the surcharges there turn you off a little bit, there's also good news with American Airlines because you can book American Airlines business class flights to Europe for the same 42,000 miles from the Northeast to the United States. And, then you're going to pay just whatever the departure taxes are. So for instance, I
Mhm.
looked up Madrid to New York, 42,000 miles and $48. I mean, that's one of the best deals in business class between Europe and the United States.
That is amazing. Yeah. And, if only Asia miles were, easier to come by. They're easier than they used to be. And it'd be nice if they were easier yet. It would also be really nice if they get rid of that 36 month, um, you know, uh, because I'd be willing to take advantage of a transfer bonus to Japan Airlines speculatively if I knew that those miles would stick around forever. But since they expire after 36 months, hard stop, I'm not going to do that. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
aside. This is a
No,
great
but
find,
yeah.
42K. Now, again, as Nick said, that's only between Europe and or Western Europe and East Northeast U.S. That their awards are distance based, right?
Right.
And
So you're going to pay
so
more from the
that's why
West
you're going
Coast.
to
Yeah.
pay a lot more if you go from like Western U.S. to Eastern Europe or something.
Yes, that's true. Their partner awards are distance based, and so that absolutely is true and something to keep in mind. Speaking of distance based partner awards, I think one of the coolest things that I spent a lot of time trying to explore, and it's not as easy as I might have hoped, but is totally worth it if you're interested in complicated award booking, is that you can book really complicated multi-partner awards with multiple stopovers, and you can do it right on the website. You don't have to call in. If you were sad that ANA got
Wow.
rid of its round the world award chart, be sad no longer because there are some amazing things you can put together with the Japan Airlines website. So you can put together these multi-partner awards, and you can have, if you fly on One World Airlines, you can have 7 stopovers. It doesn't cost any more. There's no additional fee or something for a stopover. Of course, you'll pay whatever the taxes are going to be. Some countries will charge you tax if you have a stopover of more than 24 hours. So you may pay taxes and fees, and you're
Right.
going to pay surcharges on some airlines. But those surcharges, as we already said, are usually pretty moderate, even on the airlines that have them. So you can put together some wild awards. Now, I'm not sure on all of the routing rules. I found some other blogs that had published routing rules, but they didn't all make sense. Some of them seemed a little contradictory to me. So, and I ran into some awards that errored out as I was trying to piece them together that seemed like they should work and then didn't. But then I also ran some examples that worked just fine, like Kuala Lumpur to Doha and either Malaysian or Qatar, stop over in Doha, then continue on to Casablanca on Qatar as well, stop over in Casablanca for a while, and then continue to New York on Royal Air Morocco. And that priced out, I think, 110,000 points. And that one was, I think, $450 in taxes and fees or so. And most of that, or at least half of that, was surcharges for flying Qatar. So,
Hmm.
so that if you've avoided that and flew some other airlines, you'd pay even less. And so that's pretty comparable to what Air Canada Aeroplan charges for complicated award routing, but you can have up to 7 stopovers. Whereas Air Canada Aeroplan, you can have one for an additional 5,000 miles. You can have seven with Japan Airlines Mileage Bank. And some of the mileage bands are pretty generous. There's a mileage band from 20 to 25,000 miles, which you could build a pretty good round the world trip with that much distance. And that's 150,000 miles in business class. So you're talking like 7 stops, remember?
Hmm.
Seven for 150,000 in business class. That's pretty terrific. Now, they don't allow backtracking, and I had some trouble. Like, for instance, I had looked at flying from Casablanca to Madrid and then Madrid to New York, or flying from Doha to Barcelona, Barcelona to Madrid, Madrid to New York. And I had trouble with it not pricing out things that showed available on the website. So it is going to take some trial and error. It's not a beginner play at all. But for more advanced users and those interested in these multi-stop awards, I think it's pretty wild you can do that. Now, if you book the non-One World partners, you can only have 3 stopovers. So if you're booking like Air France or you're booking on JetBlue or something like that, then you would have presumably just 3 stopovers on an award. But still, I mean, 3 stopovers, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So I just looked up the old ANA Around the World award chart, which no longer exists anymore. But to fly 25,000 miles in business class on ANA's old award chart, that was 145,000 miles. And you're
Hmm.
saying that you can do the same distance, but for only 150,000, which is pretty much the same thing.
Right, right. It's pretty
The
close. Yeah.
yeah, the main difference really is that ANA miles were very easy to get because of the one-to-one transfers from Amex membership rewards. And Amex has done so many things over the years to make points really easy to get. There hasn't been nearly that much easy to get points from Bilt and Capital One as Amex, but still, that's really interesting that award chart is that good. So it's not specifically designed to be around the world, but you could use it that
No,
way,
you
right?
could use it that way. Yeah, exactly. You could book it as a one way. You could book it as a round trip. It's cumulative distance. It's based on cumulative distance. So you could go all the way around the world. You could book just a round trip and stop in a bunch of places
Hmm.
theoretically. And I read about this on other blogs, but again, had a hard time getting the pricing engine to do it. Theoretically, you could bounce around on American Airlines or Alaska around the United States with again up to 7 stopovers on an award.
Mm,
So you could put together a whole bunch of domestic flights too, potentially for really good deals. So and in comparison to ANA, you're right. Obviously, way easier to earn Amex points that you could have transferred to ANA. But I think that there's some other comparison points where Japan Airlines might be a little more appealing. Like, actually, I'll start with another one that would have been more appealing for ANA. Star Alliance has more members than One World does, so there were more airlines you could fly. But the flip side
sure.
of that is a lot of the ANA partners, or at least a number of them, had really high surcharges. You got the whole Lufthansa group that has really
Right.
high surcharges on their awards, and ANA had increased the surcharges on their flights quite a bit. And then there were some United flights randomly that had
Yep.
surcharges
Yep.
too. Whereas here with Japan Airlines, even the worst offenders, the British Airways of the world, it's only a little over $200 on the flights from the United States to and from Europe. So the surcharges are far more reasonable. And then, of course, there are a number of partners
Yeah.
that won't have them at all. So
I do want to mention with Cathay Pacific, at least booking British Airways, those really low surcharges are limited to flights from sort of Northeast U.S. to London,
good to
and so
know.
that might be the case here
That might be the
too.
case
We
here.
I don't
Yeah.
think we know yet.
Yeah, that might be the case. Although Qatar Airways surcharges were also low on the routes I checked that were without
Hmm.
outside of the United States. Though now that you mentioned that, that actually does bring to mind the fact that I mentioned Emirates business class awards, but the flights from Dubai to the United States did have high surcharges through Japan Airlines. So
Hmm.
like Dubai to New York, for instance, I think had I don't know something like $800 in surcharges
Wow.
or nine hundred
Hmm.
dollars in surcharges. It was comparable to what you would pay if you were booking
Right.
through Emirates. So it's possible, yes, you're right that there could be higher surcharges on some of those routes. It's something that we're going to have to play with, but it's kind of fun to have the ability to do that now. So
Right.
I think
Right.
it's
And you can presumably see that as you're building your One World award,
You can
or no?
see the yes. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know if you could see the taxes and fees until you got to the end of pricing it. If they showed it as you
Mm.
went, I'm not sure if they
Hmm.
showed it as you went. Come to think of it, it might have on the right hand side. I can't remember. So, but you do see it anyway before you get to the final booking stage when it actually
Yeah.
prices the whole thing out. And there were times, like I said, where it would error out and not price it. But if you get to that page where it prices it out, presumably it's bookable, and it does actually break down how much is taxes and how much is surcharges. So
Mm.
it doesn't just give you a single number. It does give you the single number at the top, but it also splits it out for you without having to expand it and figure out what's what, which I thought was pretty transparent and nice. So fun tool to play with. And again, you'd have to play separately with the One World tool if you want to book multiple One World airlines versus the Partner Award tool. Now, the Partner Award tool, I'm not sure if you can mix multiple of the non One World partners. I
Hmm.
didn't see an easy
Right.
way to do that. So I'm not sure if you can book multiple of the non One World partners. But for instance, on JetBlue, you could theoretically fly from Los Angeles to New York and have a stopover, and then, New York to Florida and have a stopover, and Florida to, I don't know, somewhere in the Caribbean. And so you could potentially put together some pretty interesting ones, even on single partners in some situations, or fly to Europe. JetBlue Transcontinental is supposed to be 42,000 miles in Mint class, and same from the Northeast of the United States to Europe, though I didn't actually find any of those awards. That's why I didn't include it in the post.
Hmm.
But theoretically, they're out there.
Got it. So I didn't realize that what you were saying about the multiple stopovers allowed, I thought that was only for the One World awards, but you're saying that's true
No, you
for
you
any
can
of
have
the awards?
three. You can have three stopovers on
Hmm.
the not the One World Awards, just the individual
Partner.
partner. Yeah, with or
Okay.
I don't even know if I should say individual because I'm not positive. It's only if on an individual partner, but what they call partner awards. So if you were flying just one partner, that you could have three on the non One World airlines. But if you're
Hmm.
doing a One World award, that has to include at least two One World airlines, and then you can have seven stopovers.
Got it.
So
Got it.
yeah. Yeah. So pretty interesting. I think it's fun to dig into that and take a look at it if you have a lot of Capital One miles and or a lot of Bilt points and a lot of sense of adventure and a desire to fly around the world. You've got some good options. They have some other partners, by the way, that are not alliance partners. For instance, Bangkok Airways is a partner with Japan Airlines, and so if you're looking to get to Koh Samui or Phuket or some of the other islands there, you've got some additional options to get between Bangkok and those places. So that's worth knowing as well. And there were some other partnerships too that I couldn't find availability on Korean, but they partner with Korean as well.
Hmm.
So there may be some opportunities there too. I did try to find availability on those things too, but eventually it became a time suck where I had to move on to the next one. And there was enough here that I thought it was certainly worth sharing while we've got that 30% transfer bonus. So, if you've
Absolutely.
got a lot of Capital One miles, I think it's worth looking at Japan Airlines.
All right. That's so cool. So that was Japan Airlines, sort of 301 rather than 101. So advanced Japan Airlines tricks. So hopefully everybody enjoyed listening to that, even if you don't plan to ever dip your dip your toes into those murky waters. But there's some gems to be
There's some
found there.
gems that are worth dipping your toes in for. So
Hmm.
come on
Hmm.
in. The water's warm. All right. So I think that brings us to this week's question of the week. And so this week's question of the week, we're going to switch gears a little bit to Alaska Atmos. So a reader wrote in and said that they know buying points is not usually a good value, and Frequent Miler typically only recommends buying points if you have a specific redemption in mind. However, reader says, I'm currently tempted by the 110% bonus to buy Alaska Atmos rewards. When buying at least 20,000 Atmos rewards points, so you net 42,000 in that case, the price comes to 1.66 cents per point. That's, I think, a little bit higher than our reasonable redemption value for Alaska miles, but it's pretty easy to redeem them for more than 1.66 cents in value, especially with partners. And as an aside, you could book Japan Airlines business class, for instance, from I think 60 or 70,000 miles. So even a better rate than what you might find sometimes through Japan Airlines. So there are some good values to be had there. What pushed me toward the edge, though, was seeing that Rove Miles, reader continues on, is offering 1.6 miles per dollar on Alaska Atmos purchases. So if you go to Rove Miles in their shopping portal, sure enough, they're offering 1.6 transferable miles per dollar spent when buying Alaska Atmos rewards points. So they said, I don't think Frequent Miler has a reasonable redemption value for Rove yet, but it seems easy enough to get 1.5 cents per point out of those. So they said that, if you consider that return, your effective price is even less than 1.6 cents per point, maybe 1.55 cents per point, and maybe even lower depending on how you're doing it. So what do you think, Greg? Are you a buyer of miles? I mean, if Alaska is offering miles at 1.66 cents, are you a buyer of Alaska miles if you're able to kind of pair that with earning Rove miles as you buy them? What do you think? Is it worth buying them?
No, I'm not a buyer. The way I think about these things is even when miles are on sale, um, I need to see like extraordinarily cheap prices, like 1 cent or less, for me to buy miles without a plan for how I'm going to use them. Now, if I had, if I was looking at 45,000 mile business class to Europe, which I can get from Detroit Airport with Alaska miles. And if I was looking at something like that incredible value, and I didn't have those Alaska Atmos miles available to do that, then yeah, yeah, I think it could make sense to do that, and also assuming I don't have like the Bilt points to transfer to Alaska. So there's a lot of like sort of caveats there. Also, do I have maybe that same flight is 57,500 miles through American Airlines? Do I already have more than enough American Airlines miles to do that? I'd rather use the miles I have than buy new ones. So that's kind of how I think about it. Um, it's so easy to get airline miles by signing up for new cards, by shopping through portals, by referring friends to new cards, things like that. That the idea of like buying miles well over a penny each, over 1.5 cents each, just because I could get a better deal from them, is not something I'm going to look to do, because I'm getting most of my miles more like free. Like, it's not free because you're always giving up earning like cash back when you shop through a portal or whatever. But still, if you see what I mean, it's not like I'm buying them that expensively. And so yeah, that's my approach. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned the ability to book the same flight with other miles that you have, because I think that's a major factor, probably for us at least. I look at it and I say there are opportunities where you could get good value. And if you need a specific ticket on a specific route on a specific day that's available and you don't have other miles to book it, it certainly might make sense to buy those miles. I think if you're able to get that 45K business class award to Europe that Greg was talking about, that's $747, I think, worth of miles at 1.66 cents a mile, or even at 55K, there's some other routes that you'd be able to book. And so then you'd be looking at, I think, a little over $900 worth of miles, which is certainly a good deal
Great deal. Yeah,
for a business class flight to Europe. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's definitely good, but it's not, it's better than what you would pay for cash, but it's not so good that I feel like I need to go run out and buy the miles, particularly because I think Greg's point nailed it there. That, okay, maybe I don't have the miles in Alaska to book that 45K or 55K award, but do I have miles in another program where I could book the same award for 65K or even 70K? Then I don't necessarily want to part with the cash when I already have these miles that I've earned
Right.
that I could use. So I'd be in the same boat where I don't think I'd be buying, and probably not speculatively. Now, I think some people approach the game differently. And if you're somebody who approaches the game as a cash back person primarily, and that cash back is sort of your stash of money to use for travel, then this can be a great way to get a good discount on travel. There's no doubt.
Hmm.
But I think Greg and I, and certainly many people that listen to this show, are able to earn a lot of miles and points every year in various programs. So even though they're not Alaska necessarily miles that you're earning in huge quantity, there's enough other types of miles that can book most of Alaska's partner awards that I wouldn't be a buyer either yet without a very specific
Hmm.
and immediate use in mind. Also, keep in mind that programs devalue, so if you're buying
Right.
points speculatively, you don't even have a plan for it yet. You don't know when they're going to change the award chart. Now, I don't think Alaska's likely too soon, but at the same time, who's to say? And so if you're buying now and then 2 years from now, you still haven't used them and they've totally changed the value proposition, you certainly may be kicking yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Greg. That's the short way to say all of that.
There you go.
All right. That's the end of today's episode. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. Follow us on all the various social media. Join our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group where you can discuss stuff like this all the time. Wherever you're watching or listening, again, don't forget to like or give us a thumbs up. Leave us your feedback. We always appreciate that. And if you have a question that you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week, or a comment that you'd like to be considered for the giant mailbag, you can send that too.
Send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.